Hi everybody, this is Saad for the Saad Truth. I'm going to give you a little preview of a topic that I'll be covering in my forthcoming book, Suicidal Empathy, which I hope that you will all go out and pre-order once it's ready for pre-order. And before I start on today's topic, please head off and subscribe to the channel and to my podcast. It's free. Just press the subscribe button, press the bell icon, and it really helps in terms of making my message more visible to a greater number of people. In any case, today I want to talk about something that I call the singular exemplar bias. This is something that I first discussed in the context of my work in evolutionary psychology, where I was trying to explain what are some of the cognitive and emotional obstacles that cause people to always try to offer some rebuttal to evolutionary psychology. So one of which is the following. If I were to say Homo sapiens are a sexually dimorphic species whereby males in that species are on average bigger than females. Many species are not sexually dimorphic in terms of their size. Human beings are. That statement is absolutely a veridical fact, notwithstanding the fact that your Aunt Mary is bigger than your Uncle Roscoe. So the fact that you've identified a singular exemplar that seems to go contrary to the statement that is true at the population level does not falsify how veridical the statement is at the population level. Right? That's why we have statistical distributions that overlap. On average, men are taller than women, even though most female players in the WNBA are taller than many men, right? One does not falsify the other. So now let's apply that to how this manifests itself in suicidal empathy. So I recently came back from a trip where I delivered some lectures in London and in Buckingham at the University of Buckingham. But first I went to Reykjavik, Iceland, where I delivered a lecture there on both the parasitic mind and suicidal empathy. And during the Q&A period where I was talking about, if you had a daughter or a child that you would like to have to find a babysitter, statistically speaking, would it be safer for the babysitter to be a 17-year-old girl or a 37-year-old male? And I was trying to explain that to try to demonstrate that statistical regularities exist and are coded in our brain for a reason, because they allow us to optimally navigate through the difficulties of life. Right? That's why we have the capacity to engage in inferential thinking and reasoning and statistical reasoning. And so two people, very, very empathetic, very, very kind, one of whom said, well, I too am a psychologist, and I vehemently disagree with your position. By the way, I hope that I was told that the lecture and the Q&A period was taped and will eventually be shared with me. So when that does happen, hopefully you'll be able to see the actual raw exchange. The person said, well, that's not, no, I wouldn't, that's not true that you should, be more likely to have your children babysat by a 17-year-old girl. I said, how is that? Why is that? He goes, well, because, I'm 37 years old or whatever, and I never would abuse anyone. And I know many 37-year-old men that are perfectly have zero chance of abusing someone. So do you see it? So I said, so then what you're saying, is it not true though that the statement that statistically speaking, your child is less likely to be molested by a 17-year-old girl than a 37-year-old man, does that not hold true? And, the person simply wasn't willing, because he's 37 and he wouldn't molest anyone, and he knows 37-year-old men who wouldn't molest anyone. Just a few minutes ago, I posted a clip, actually, I had posted this yesterday, where a woman approached me at the cafe saying, "Oh, I just watched a TikTok clip where you were explaining that the number one greatest predictor of abuse in a home is if there is a step parent in the home." And that this finding that I was discussing stems from the work of Martin Daly and Margot Wilson, two of the pioneers of evolutionary psychology, where, by the way, that fact that having a step parent in the household is a 100 times greater predictive factor of child abuse than any other predictor. Again, for those of you who don't understand what that means, typically in science, if you've got a 1 to 1.2 odds ratio, 1 to 1.2, that would be a statistically significant finding. So you're checking the efficacy of a drug versus a placebo, and the efficacy of the drug has a 1.2 to 1 odds ratio. That would be a big deal. This is 1 to 100. So the statistical significance of that, the step parent effect, is astounding. It's in the order of 100 times greater than the typical findings that you see across all sciences. Guess what someone just posted? Well, dear God, please don't tarnish the name of all step parents. I am a step parent and I've never abused anyone. Oh, got it. So the statistical reality that's a 100 times greater predictor to any other predictor that having a step parent in the home increases the likelihood of child abuse is negated by the fact that you're a step parent and you didn't abuse your child. Do you see how impenetrable the mind is to human reason and why the West is in its current problem? So Islam has certain tenets that are perfectly antithetical to Western values. You couldn't come up with any value system that is more incongruent with some of the enshrined personal liberties and freedoms in the West. But somebody says, but my friend Ahmad is married to a Jewish man. He loves black dogs. He eats prosciutto and drinks whiskey. So it's not true that Islam forbids eating of pork and forbids alcohol drinking and has injunctions against dogs in general, but black dogs in particular, and has a astounding canonical hatred of the Jew. Because Ahmad, my friend, has never uttered a word that's bad against the Jews. As a matter of fact, he's gay and he's married to a Jew. So how could you think of a religion that is more pro-homosexuality than Islam? This is what I fight for against every day. This is why I wrote The Parasitic Mind, and this is why Suicidal Empathy will soon be released. Please make sure to go ahead and subscribe to the channel. It helps. It really helps. Do your part in contributing, in elevating voices that are fighting for the future of your children. Take care, everybody.